Jake sat in his small, dimly lit apartment, looking at the letter that had come just that morning. It was from a lawyer, informing him that his late uncle, who had been living on the other side of the galaxy, had left him an inheritance. The letter was official, filled with formalities, and yet the words still felt unreal. The inheritance, an antique shop. But not just any shop, this one was a little unusual. An antique shop, Jake mumbled to himself, raising an eyebrow. He had never met the man. He knew little about his uncle, other than the strange rumors about him. People in town would talk about the crazy alien who ran a shop full of odd, ancient things. As a young kid, Jake had been curious, but his uncle's reclusive nature had kept everyone at a distance. Jake had heard the stories. His uncle had been a collector of what no one knew. They said he had things from all over the universe, strange trinkets, rare books, and artifacts that couldn't be explained. Most of it was just lying around, gathering dust in a forgotten corner of the world. Everyone thought it was all just a bizarre hobby. Nobody had ever guessed that his uncle's shop might be anything more than a collection of useless junk. But now, that junk was his dot. Still in disbelief, Jake stood up, glancing. At the time, he didn't have much time to think about it. The lawyer's letter had instructed him to come to the shop as soon as possible, to take control of his inheritance. A strange feeling crept over him. Was he really ready to take on this bizarre task? Was it even worth it? With a shrug, Jake grabbed his coat, stuffed the letter into his pocket, and walked out the door. He had nothing else to do today. Why not see what the old man had left him? The antique shop was located in a quiet, dusty part of town. As Jake approached the building, he couldn't help but notice how old and worn it looked. The windows were cracked, and the faded sign above the door barely read Intergalactic Antiques. The shop looked like it hadn't been touched in years, yet something about it seemed alive. Maybe it was just his imagination, but Jake felt as though the building was watching him. He opened the door, the bell above it ringing with a soft chime. Inside, the shop was exactly how he'd imagined it, told, dusty and cluttered. Rows of shelves were stacked with strange, unidentifiable objects, some of which appeared to glow faintly in the dim light. There were books, old weapons, jewelry, and more items Jake didn't even have names for. Everything was in disarray, yet there was an odd sense of order to it, as though the mess was intentional. "Hello," Jake called, stepping inside. He didn't expect anyone to be there, but to his surprise, a woman emerged from behind a curtain in the back. She was tall and thin, with dark hair tied up in a messy bun. Her clothes were simple, nothing special, but her eyes had an ancient, knowing look that made Jake pause. She didn't look like someone who worked at an antique shop. "You must be Jake," she said, her voice smooth but firm. "Your uncle told me you'd be coming." Yeah, that's me. I didn't expect anyone to be here," Jake replied, feeling a little awkward. The woman gave him a small smile. "I'm Lena. I worked for your uncle for many years." She paused, studying Jake carefully. "He spoke of you often." Jake didn't know how to respond. He didn't know his uncle. The thought made him feel even more out of place. "Can you show me the shop?" Jake asked, unsure what else to say. "Of course," Lena nodded. "Follow me." As they walked through the aisles, Lena explained the basics. The shop was, as Jake had guessed, a collection of strange artifacts from all over the galaxy, many of which weren't even from Earth. She told him that his uncle had spent his life collecting these things, finding them in the most unlikely places, trading and collecting items of great value, though most people didn't recognize their worth. "But why leave it to me?" Jake asked, feeling out of his depth. "I don't know anything about antiques. I'm just a regular guy." Lena's eyes softened. "Your uncle believed you would understand eventually. There's something special about this shop, something that's hard to explain. You'll see soon enough." Jake wasn't sure what she meant, but he nodded and tried to hide his discomfort. "Where's the office?" he asked, thinking of the room mentioned in the letter. Lena's smile faded slightly. "It's through here." She led him to the back of the shop, through a narrow hallway. At the end, there was a door that led into a small office. It was a mess, much like the rest of the shop. But there was a strange energy in the room. Jake's eyes were drawn to a hidden door in the back. It was half covered by a curtain, but there was something about it that stood out. It seemed different from the rest of the shop. Lena noticed his gaze. That's the room your uncle kept locked. It's not like the rest of the shop. Jake frowned, stepping toward the door. What's inside? Lena hesitated before answering. Her tone serious. That room. It changes. You can't predict what will happen when you enter. It's not just a room. It's something else. Jake stood there, staring at the door. He was no closer to understanding, but he had a strong feeling that this was only the beginning. Your uncle always said that when you were ready, the room would reveal its secrets. Lena added softly. Jake took a deep breath and, with a sense of nervous excitement, reached for the door. It was time to find out what his uncle had left him. Jake's heart pounded as his fingers touched the old, worn handle of the door. It was as though the room behind it was calling to him, urging him to enter. He hesitated for just a moment before pushing it open. The door creaked loudly, and the dim light from the shop seeped into the hidden room. At first glance, it looked ordinary. The walls were lined with shelves filled with more artifacts, odd sculptures, shimmering crystals, and strange, glowing boxes. But something about the room felt different. The air was thick, charged with an energy Jake couldn't explain. Lena stood behind him, watching quietly. You might not understand it all at first, she said, her voice softer than before. But your uncle knew you would eventually. Jake glanced over his shoulder at her. What do you mean? What is this place? Lena hesitated. It's the room of change. It's not just a storage room like the rest of the shop. Things here are not fixed. They shift. Jake frowned, puzzled. Shift? How? She gave a small, almost reluctant smile. You'll see. Taking a deep breath, Jake stepped further into the room. The walls seemed to breathe, as if the room itself were alive. There were no windows, no way to tell how much time had passed since he entered. But the strange sensation in the air made him feel as if the room were suspended in time. He moved cautiously, looking around. One of the glowing boxes on a shelf caught his eye. It was a simple object, shaped like a small cube. But as he reached for it, something strange happened. The room began to hum softly, like the sound of distant whispers. Jake pulled his hand back quickly, startled. The moment he did, the air around him seemed to shift, and the room changed. The walls that had been lined with artifacts moments before were now covered with intricate maps, drawn in languages he didn't recognize. The shelves were gone, replaced with stacks of strange books and ancient scrolls. It was as if the entire room had transformed in the blink of an eye. His mouth went dry. What is going on? He whispered, more to himself than to Lena. Lena stepped forward, her expression serious. This room is not just a place. It's a gateway, one that connects many worlds. Your uncle discovered it long ago, and he believed the room could only reveal its true nature to you when you were ready. Ready for what? Jake asked, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and excitement. To understand, Lena replied. To unlock what your uncle left behind. Jake's mind raced as he looked around the room, which had now changed once again. The maps had disappeared, and in their place were strange symbols, glowing faintly in the dim light. He walked closer to one of the symbols, his fingers brushing against it. The moment he touched it, the entire room seemed to react. The floor beneath his feet began to vibrate, and the walls flickered. Like a broken television screen, Lena stepped forward quickly, her voice urgent. Don't touch anything unless you're sure. The room doesn't just change on its own. It reacts to what you do. Jake withdrew his hand, startled. What do you mean it reacts? It's alive, isn't it? Lena nodded slowly. Yes, in a way. This room is part of something ancient, something much older than anything you can imagine. Your uncle was one of the few who could enter it safely, and now, so are you. But there's more to it. It holds the key to understanding your family's connection to the stars. Jake's head spun. He hadn't asked for any of this. All he wanted was to clear out an old shop. But now, it seemed he was in the middle of something much bigger than he could comprehend. Family's connection to the stars. Jake repeated, trying to make sense of it. What do you mean? Lena didn't answer right away. Instead, she motioned for Jake to follow her. She led him to the far end of the room, where a strange device sat on a pedestal. It looked like a mix between a telescope and a mechanical puzzle, its gears turning slowly, as if it were waiting for something. This, Lena said softly, is what your uncle was trying to unlock. And now, it's yours to figure out. Jake stared at the device. What is it? Lena smiled, but it was a sad smile. It's a map to the rest of your heritage. You see, your uncle wasn't just a collector of rare items. He was part of something much greater, something connected to the stars, this shop, this row. It's all part of a much larger puzzle. Jake felt his heart race. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Lena shook her head. Your uncle wanted you to discover it yourself. He believed that when the time was right, you would come here, and everything would make sense. Jake reached out for the device, hesitating for only a second. As his fingers touched it, the room shifted again. The walls vanished, replaced by an image of a vast galaxy, planets, stars, and nebulae, floating in the endless black. In the center, a single bright light glowed. It was almost like a beacon. He stepped back. His breath caught in his throat. Is that the map? Lena nodded. Yes, the map to the galaxy your uncle was trying to connect with. And now, it's your turn. The room grew still again. Jake was left staring at the glowing map, the weight of it all sinking in. The shop that had seemed so useless just hours before now felt like the center of the universe. Are you ready to find out what your uncle's legacy really is? Lena asked, her voice almost a whisper. Jake took a deep breath, the map glowing brightly in front of him. For the first time, he felt like he might actually be ready to step into his uncle's shoes and maybe even into something much bigger than himself. Jake's fingers hovered over the glowing map that had appeared before him. It was strange, not just in its design, but in the way it seemed to pulse with energy. Every time he looked at the map, something new caught his eye, the stars, the distant planets, and the swirling nebulae. It felt like the map was more than just an image, it felt like it was alive. What is this? Jake whispered, unable to tear his eyes away from the shifting lights. The galaxy in front of him wasn't like anything he'd seen before. There were no familiar constellations, no recognizable shapes, everything was new. And yet, somehow, it felt as though it was meant for him to see. Lena stood by his side, watching him with a quiet intensity. Your uncle believed this map was the key to everything. It's more than just a map of the stars. It's a map to the unknown. Jake turned his head to her, confusion clouding his thoughts. The unknown. What does that mean? Lena sighed and looked at the map, her expression turning serious. It means there's more out there than we know. Your uncle. He wasn't just searching for antiques or rare items. He was searching for a connection to something far beyond our world, something connected to your family. Jake frowned. My family? But I thought my uncle was just a crazy collector. He didn't talk about any of this. That's because he couldn't, Lena explained. Your uncle was part of a lineage that dates back hundreds of years, maybe even longer. A family with ties to ancient civilizations across the galaxy. Your uncle tried to uncover the truth about your family's past, and now you have the chance to do the same. Jake blinked, stunned by the revelation. I have a family connected to space. I don't even know what to think. Lena smiled. Faintly, you don't have to understand everything right now. But the truth is, your family's connection to the stars is real. And it's not just a part of history, it's something still alive today. The room seemed to grow quieter, as though it was waiting for Jake to process the information. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to make sense of what Lena had said. This was too much to take in at once. Why didn't my uncle just tell me all of this? Jake asked, frustration creeping into his voice. Why leave me with this? Lena hesitated before answering. He left you the shop because he knew that only you could handle what's coming next. The room, the map, it all leads to something important. He believed you were the one who would understand it. Jake shook his head. But I don't understand. I'm just a regular guy. I don't know anything about space or ancient families or anything like that. You are not just a regular guy, Jake, Lena said, her tone gentle but firm. You have a legacy you've never been told about, and now it's your turn to find out what it means. Jake stared at the glowing map. Again, it was starting to make a little more sense, but the weight of it all was still overwhelming. His uncle's antique shop, which had seemed like a joke only a few days ago, now felt like the doorway to something much bigger. What do I do with this? Jake asked. Feeling helpless. What's the next step? Lena stepped closer, her eyes locked on the map. Your uncle left clues in this room, not just on the map, but in the things around you. Some of them are hidden, waiting for you to find them, but you need to think carefully. This room changes because it's meant to test you, Jake. It's not just about finding the pieces. It's about putting them together. Jake looked round the room, feeling more lost than ever. The walls were covered with strange objects, relics that seemed both ancient and alien. Some of them hummed faintly, while others were completely still, almost like they were waiting for someone to unlock their purpose. Lena reached down to pick up a small silver key from one of the tables. It was simple, yet its weight seemed important. This key, she said, handing it to Jake, was your uncle's. He believed it was part of a larger puzzle. And now, it's yours to solve. Jake took the key, feeling its cool surface against his skin. He had no idea what it unlocked, but he had a strong feeling it would be important. What does this open? Jake asked. Lena didn't answer right away. Instead, she pointed toward a small chest in the far corner of the room. It was a simple wooden box, but the moment Jake looked at it, he felt a strange pull. There was something about it that felt familiar. That chest, Lena said, is where your uncle kept his most important secrets. You need the key to open it. And when you do, you'll find out just how deep this goes. Jake's mind raced as he walked toward the chest. His hands were shaking as he inserted the key into the lock. With a soft click, the chest opened, revealing a collection of old documents, maps, and a few strange devices. He carefully lifted one of the papers, his eyes scanning the text. The language was unlike anything he had ever seen before, but there was something in the symbols that felt almost natural, as though he had seen it before, in a dream or a memory that he couldn't quite reach. This, Jake whispered, this looks like the symbols on the map. Lena nodded. Exactly. Your uncle was trying to decode these, to connect the symbols to the map. The symbols are the key to finding the next piece of the puzzle. Jake stared at the papers in his hands, the reality of his situation starting to sink in. This was no longer just about an old shop or an inheritance. It was about something much greater. His uncle's secrets, his family's legacy, and whatever lay beyond the map were now in his hands. I have to figure this out, Jake said quietly, more to himself than to Lena. You're not alone, Jake, Lena said softly. I'll be here to help. But remember, this is your journey now. What comes next is up to you. Jake took a deep breath and looked down at the papers, the weight of his uncle's legacy settling over him. He didn't know where this would lead, but he knew one thing. For sure, his life was never going to be the same. The days that followed Jake's discovery in the hidden room felt like a blur. Every time he returned to the antique shop, he couldn't help but feel like the walls were closing in on him, the symbols, the maps, the strange devices. Nothing seemed normal anymore. He spent hours poring over the documents his uncle had left behind, trying to decode them, but they only deepened the mystery. It was as if the more he learned, the less he understood. Then, one afternoon, just as Jake was about to give up for the day, the door to the shop creaked open. A chill ran down his spine as a figure stepped inside. He quickly stood up, startled by the sudden arrival. The figure was tall and slim, with a face that seemed both human and not. The alien's skin was a smooth shade of blue, and its eyes were large and silver, reflecting the dim light of the shop. Its clothes were simple, yet elegant, shimmering fabrics that seemed to shift with the light. It was like nothing Jake had ever seen before. The alien's voice, when it spoke, was calm and melodic, yet it carried an authority that made Jake instinctively take a step back. I've been waiting for you, Jake, the alien said, its words strange but clear. Jake blinked in surprise, unsure of how to react. Who are you? He asked, still unsure if he was dreaming. The alien smiled, though it was a smile that didn't quite reach its eyes. I am Zarl, a representative of the Galactic Council. I knew your uncle, and I know what he left behind for you. Jake's confusion only deepened. Galactic Council? My uncle. What are you talking about? Zarel's silver eyes seemed to pierce through Jake, as though it could see straight into his thoughts. Your uncle was not just a collector of ancient relics, Jake. He was part of something much larger, a group dedicated to preserving the knowledge and technology of ancient civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Jake's heart raced. Wait, so you're saying my uncle wasn't just some old man collecting weird stuff? He was involved with aliens? Zarl nodded. Yes, and now you have inherited more than just his shop. You have inherited a responsibility. Jake swallowed hard. What kind of responsibility? Zarel's gaze softened slightly. Your uncle left you the key to something very important. The room you've found, its power is more than you can imagine. But it's not just about unlocking its secrets. It's about protecting it from those who would use it for destructive purposes. Jake took a deep breath, trying to wrap his head around in the flood of information. So, what's in the room? What's so dangerous? Zarl walked towards the back of the shop, where the hidden room was located. Jake followed, his mind spinning with questions. The alien stopped in front of the door, its eyes narrowing slightly. The room, as you've discovered, is not just a storage space. It is a nexus, a place where the lines between different dimensions blur. Your uncle unlocked it because he believed it could be used for good. But not everyone agrees with that. Jake felt a weight settle on his shoulders. But why me? I don't know anything about this. I'm just a guy who inherited a weird shop. Zarl turned to face Jake, its expression unreadable. Your uncle believed you were ready, Jake. He left you the map, the key, and the room. He trusted you with the knowledge that could shape the future. But that trust comes with a burden. The room is not just a place, it is a gateway. And if used incorrectly, it could tear apart everything. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that such a powerful thing was hidden away in his uncle's shop made his head spin. He had only wanted to live a simple life, but now it seemed that his uncle's strange collection had thrust him into the heart of something far bigger than himself. I don't know if I can do this, Jake admitted, his voice low. Zarl studied him for a long moment, as though weighing his words carefully. No one is born ready for this, Jake, but you have something your uncle never had: an open mind. That will be your strength. Jake nodded, though he wasn't sure if he believed it. He had no idea what was coming, but something told him his life would never be the same again. As Zarl turned to leave, it paused in the doorway and looked back at Jake. You are not alone in this. The Galactic Council will guide you, but remember, time is not on your side. The longer you wait, the more dangerous it becomes. With that, Zarl left the shop as quietly as it had arrived. Jake stood in the middle of the room, his thoughts racing. The alien's visit had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. He wasn't just the owner of a weird antique shop anymore. He was the guardian of something much more important. As he turned back to the map and the chest, the weight of the decision ahead of him felt heavier than ever. There were enemies out there, alien factions who would stop at nothing to control the room's power, and he had no idea how to protect it. But there was one thing Jake knew for sure now. He wasn't going to back down. He didn't know how he would do it, but he would figure it out. His uncle had left him this responsibility, and he would face it head on. The shop, once just a strange inheritance, now felt like the center of a much larger conflict. And Jake, for better or worse, was caught right in the middle of it. The next few days felt like a blur to Jake. The visit from Zarl, the alien from the Galactic Council, weighed heavily on his mind. He had always thought of his uncle's antique shop as just a place to collect old things, but now it was something much bigger. The room, the key, and the strange map, it all pointed to something far more dangerous than Jake had ever imagined. Sitting at the desk in the office, Jake tried to focus on the documents his uncle had left behind, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the glowing map and the warning from Zarl. There were other beings out there, alien factions who would stop at nothing to control the power hidden in the room. It was up to him to protect it, But how could he, an ordinary human, keep something so dangerous safe? His mind raced, trying to piece together the clues. He had a map, a key, and the strange symbols from the chest, but none of it made sense. He wasn't equipped for this kind of responsibility. He was just a guy who had inherited a shop full of old junk. Just as he was about to put the documents down, the door to the shop opened. Jake looked up, startled to see Lena entering. She looked more serious than usual, her eyes scanning the room as she approached. "Jake," she said, her voice urgent. "We need to talk." Jake stood up, his heart pounding. "About what? What's going on?" Lena paused, glancing round the shop before lowering her voice. "It's not just about protecting the room anymore. We've been monitoring the situation, and I've got bad news." Jake's stomach dropped. "Bad news? What's happening?" Lena's expression was grim. "There are more factions interested in the room than we thought. The Galactic Council isn't the only group looking for it. There's a much larger threat on the horizon, one that could destroy everything." Jake's mind was spinning. "What do you mean? Who else is looking for it?" "A rogue group of aliens and extremist faction who believes the room holds the power to rewrite the fabric of reality itself. If they get their hands on it, they could use its power to conquer entire galaxies. The Council is trying to stop them, but they're dangerous, and they won't stop until they find it." Jake felt his heart race. "You're saying there are people aliens who want to use the room for war?" Lena nodded, her eyes filled with worry. "Exactly, and they're getting closer. We need to act fast before they do." Jake shook his head, his mind in a whirl. "But I don't know what to do. I don't have the skills to fight aliens. I don't even understand what's happening here." Lena took a deep breath, stepping closer to him. "You don't have to fight them, Jake, but you do have to protect the room. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands. Your uncle's legacy is more important than ever now, and that means you need to be ready." Jake looked at Lena, trying to make sense of it all. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even sure he could trust himself to do the right thing. But something in Lena's eyes told him that this wasn't just a matter of choice anymore, it was his responsibility. "I don't know how to protect something like this," Jake admitted, his voice quiet. "I don't even know what the room can do. What if I make things worse?" Lena's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to have all the answers, Jake, but you have the most important thing your uncle trusted. He believed you would find a way, and that's why you have to keep moving forward. Trust yourself." Jake looked down at the map again, its strange symbols now glowing faintly as if beckoning him. His uncle had known the dangers. He had left him everything he needed to protect the room. But it wasn't just about the room anymore. It was about standing up to something far bigger than himself. "I'll do it," Jake said, his voice steadying. "I don't know how, but I will protect it." Lena gave him a small nod. "That's all I can ask for. Now, we need to prepare. The rogue faction is getting closer, and we don't have much time. The next step is finding the location of the main gateway, the one that connects the room to the rest of the galaxy. If we can find that, we might be able to stop them." Jake stood up, his nerves still frayed, but a sense of determination building inside him. He had no idea what he was up against, but he knew one thing: he couldn't let the room fall into the wrong hands. "Where do we start?" Jake asked, his voice firmer now. Lena's eyes brightened slightly, her tone less heavy. "We start by decoding the rest of the symbols. The map and the documents your uncle left will give us the clues we need, but we'll have to move quickly. If we waste too much time, the faction will find the room first." Jake nodded, his mind already racing through the next steps. He wasn't sure how he was going to do it, but he had to find the answers. He had to protect the room, and with it, the future of the galaxy. For the first time since discovering the room, Jake felt like he was no longer just a bystander. This was his fight now, and no matter how impossible it seemed, he was going to face it head-on. Why had gathered so far? The room had changed once more since his last visit. This time, the walls were lined with shimmering golden patterns, almost like veins of light running through the surfaces. The air was thick with energy, and Jake could feel it vibrating in the tips of his fingers. Lena followed closely behind, her expression calm, but her eyes never leaving the map in Jake's hands. "This is it, Jake," she said quietly. "We're getting closer. The patterns on the walls, they match the symbols we've been studying. I think we're on the verge of unlocking something huge." Jake nodded, still unsure of exactly what that something huge was, but willing to trust Lena's guidance. "Do you think the rogue faction is close?" "I can't stop thinking about them. They are," Lena confirmed. "But I believe the room is more than just a hiding place for power. It's a tool that can connect us to places beyond our world, beyond our galaxy." Jake furrowed his brow. "Beyond our galaxy? You mean it can take us somewhere?" Lena's eyes softened. "Yes, Jake, somewhere far beyond Earth. Your uncle believed that the room was a bridge to other worlds. It can connect us to different dimensions, different timelines, and even alternate realities. But it has to be unlocked, and that's what we're trying to do." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The idea of the room being a bridge to other worlds was both exciting and terrifying. What if they opened it and it led to something they couldn't control? "Do you think we can trust it?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if it's dangerous?" Lena looked at him, her face serious but kind. "We don't have much H of a choice. The room is already changing, Jake. It's responding to us. But the true key lies within the symbols, within the connection to your uncle's legacy." Jake took a deep breath and stepped closer to the map on the wall, where the golden symbols were now glowing brighter. He could feel a warmth radiating from them, as if they were alive, waiting for him to unlock their meaning. "This is it," Lena said softly. "Your uncle left us this as last gift, and it's not just a key to the room. It's the key to understanding everything." Jake ran his fingers over the symbols, tracing their patterns. For a moment, nothing happened, but then, with a soft hum, the room seemed to respond. The symbols on the walls began to shift, rearranging themselves into new patterns, like a puzzle coming together. Jake stepped back, his eyes widening in awe. Lena gasped, "It's working. We're unlocking it." Before Jake could fully grasp what was happening, the entire room seemed to shift. The walls no longer appeared solid, they were transparent, revealing a vast, swirling vortex of stars and light beyond them. It was like the room had become a portal, a doorway to another dimension. Jake's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The room had transformed into a passageway, one that led far beyond Earth, far beyond the stars they knew. Lena stepped forward, her voice filled with awe. "This is it. This is the power your uncle discovered. This is the bridge." Jake felt a sense of both wonder and fear. He had no idea what awaited them on the other side of the portal. What if they unlocked something they couldn't control? What if it led to a place where the rogue faction could strike first? "We can't just walk through it," Jake said, shaking his head. "We need to know more. We need to be sure." Lena nodded in agreement. "I know, but the time is running out. We can't wait any longer. The rogue faction is closing in." Jake felt a surge of determination. He couldn't turn back now. His uncle had entrusted him with this legacy, and it was up to him to protect it. "We'll take it slow," Jake said, his voice steady. "We'll open the gateway, but we'll be careful. We'll explore it, learn everything we can, and then decide what to do next." Lena gave him a supportive nod. "That's the right choice. We can do this, Jake, together." With that, Jake stepped closer to the swirling portal, his heart racing. The room hummed with power, its golden symbols now glowing brighter than ever before. He had no idea where the gateway would lead, but he knew one thing for sure. His uncle's legacy was not just a burden, it was a responsibility. And now, it was his to carry. As Jake placed his hand on the portal's surface, the light seemed to pulse in response. He took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Together with Lena, Jake stepped through the portal, ready to unlock the next chapter of his uncle's mysterious legacy and to protect the power that could change everything. The moment Jake stepped through the swirling portal, everything around him changed. The room, the shop, and the familiar world he knew seemed to vanish, replaced by a vast, starry expanse. He felt weightless, as though he was floating in the middle of the universe. For a moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the portal. Behind him, he reached out instinctively, his hand passing through the cool air. The stars shimmered all around him, so close that it felt as though he could touch them. Each star glowed with a strange, otherworldly light, filling the space with a quiet, calming beauty. Jake had never seen anything like it. He turned to look at Lena, who had followed him through the portal. She was standing beside him, her eyes wide with awe. "This is..." Jake's voice trailed off as he struggled to find the right words. "This is amazing." Lena nodded, her gaze fixed on the swirling galaxy. "It's more than we imagined. This is what your uncle was trying to show us. A whole new world. A whole new way of seeing everything." Jake could hardly believe it. One moment, he was standing in his uncle's dusty antique shop, unsure of what was happening. The next, he was standing in the middle of a star-filled void, with a gateway that seemed to connect countless worlds. But despite the beauty around him, a heavy weight still hung in the air. The rogue alien faction was still out there, searching for the room, for the power it held. Jake could feel the pressure building. He knew time was running out. The more he explored this place, the more he realized how dangerous the room truly was. He couldn't afford to waste any more time. "What do we do now?" Jake asked, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. He didn't know what the next step was or how to stop the faction from getting to the room before he did. Lena's expression was serious. "We have to find the core of this place. The true center of the power your uncle unlocked. It's the key to controlling the room and to stopping the rogue faction." Jake nodded. He didn't understand exactly what the core was, but he knew it was the next step. His uncle had spent his life searching for it, and now it was Jake's turn to finish what he had started. The stars around them began to shift, and the light from the portal seemed to pulse, guiding them forward. They began walking, their steps slow and careful. The landscape around them seemed to shift with each step they took. At times, the stars seemed to draw closer, and at others, the space stretched out, growing vast and endless. As they moved deeper into this strange new world, Jake felt the room's power growing stronger, almost alive, responding to their presence. It was as though the very space around them was watching, waiting for them to make the next move. "What if we can't control it?" Jake asked, his voice filled with concern. "What if we open something that we can't close?" Lena's gaze softened. She understood Jake's fear, and she shared it. The room, the map, the portal, they were all part of a larger puzzle that no one had fully understood. But Lena had seen enough to know that Jake was the key to it all. His uncle had left him this responsibility for a reason. "We won't know unless we try," Lena said, her voice calm but determined. "You have the key, Jake. You have the power to unlock it, but you also have the power to control it. You just have to believe in it and in yourself." Jake hesitated for a moment. He had never considered himself a hero, never imagined that he would be standing in the middle of the galaxy, facing such a huge responsibility. But his uncle had chosen him for this, and now it was his turn to carry it out. They walked for what felt like hours, moving deeper into the vast expanse. As they moved, Jake began to sense a shift in the air. The stars above them seemed to form new patterns, guiding them forward. Finally, they reached the center of the galaxy-like space, where the stars converged into a bright, glowing sphere. It was the heart of the room's power, pulsing with energy. "This is it," Lena whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The core, the center of the room's power." Jake stepped forward, his heart racing. The core seemed to call to him, its light bright and powerful. He could feel the energy flowing through the space around him, as if it were alive, waiting for him to make his choice. He reached out slowly, his fingers brushing against the glowing surface. The moment his hand touched the core, the room around him seemed to explode with light. A rush of energy filled the air, and Jake felt a flood of memories, emotions, and images wash over him. It was as if the core was showing him the past, present, and future all at once. For a moment, everything felt overwhelming. Jake stumbled back, trying to make sense of what he had just seen. The room seemed to spin around him, the light from the core blinding him. "Jake," Lena called, her voice cutting through the confusion. Jake, you have to focus. Don't let it take you. Jake closed his eyes, trying to steady his breath. The visions were fading, but the energy from the core still pulsed around him, urging him to act. He opened his eyes again and reached out, this time more confidently. The light from the core shifted, and Jake could feel the power flowing through him. It wasn't just about unlocking the room anymore, it was about controlling it. It was about protecting the power that could change the course of the universe. Let's stop them, Jake said, his voice stronger now. Let's stop the rogue faction and protect this place. It's time to make sure no one else can use it for destruction. Lena smiled, her eyes filled with pride. We're ready, Jake. We can do this. Together, they stood in front of the core, the gateway to the future. Jake knew that the battle ahead wouldn't be easy, but he also knew that he wasn't alone. He had Lena, his uncle's legacy, and the power of the room on his side. It was time to make the final choice and face whatever came next.